Everything you're working for is moving toward you, just not at your preferred speed. Time has its own pace, and it refuses to be hurried, yet so many walk away from their goals long before life begins to reward them. Not because nothing is happening, but because they can't see what is happening. Progress doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ring bells or wave flags. It grows the way dawn appears, slowly, quietly, almost unnoticed until the darkness has already begun to lift. Patience is what allows you to witness that moment instead of turning away too soon. There's a reason success arrives slowly, and it isn't meant to discourage you. It's meant to prepare you. If everything you wanted came instantly, nothing would shape you, nothing would strengthen you. You would arrive at the destination without developing the character required to remain there. Time protects you from that. It stretches the journey just long enough for you to grow into the life you're building. It teaches you to walk long before it asks you to run. It builds depth long before it gives you height. Success moves like the seasons, always turning, always working, always building, but never rushed. Winter doesn't surrender to spring in a single afternoon. A seed doesn't break the soil because you impatiently stand over it. A tree doesn't add a ring because you demanded results. And your dreams won't mature because you stamped your foot and asked them to hurry. They grow because you stay. They grow because you keep showing up. They grow because patience gives life enough space to work with you instead of around you. The slow arrival of success is a gift, though it rarely feels like one in the moment. It gives you room to make mistakes while the stakes are small. It strengthens the habits that will one day carry real weight. It teaches you endurance, clarity, and humility, the kind of humility that comes from moving forward without applause, without guarantees, without visible evidence. If success came quickly, impatience would destroy it quickly. A hurried person can't hold long-term results. They panic at delays, misread silence as failure, and abandon the process the moment excitement fades. But the patient person, the one who understands that progress begins in silence, that growth starts beneath the surface, that effort takes time to mature, that person becomes nearly impossible to stop. Patience is not sitting still. Patience is steady work without the hunger for immediate reward. It's faith in motion. It's discipline without applause. It's the quiet promise you make to yourself that says, I'll keep going, even when I can't yet see the harvest. And something remarkable happens when that promise becomes part of you. You stop rushing. You stop doubting your pace. You stop measuring yourself against anyone else. You begin to understand that time is not your enemy. It is your partner. It is shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you for what you're asking for. Success takes its time not because you're unworthy of it, but because you're growing into it. And when the day finally comes, when the results that were once invisible become impossible to ignore, you'll look back and realize something. It was patience that carried you, step by step, through the unseen chapters of your own becoming. How progress grows in silence. Before it becomes visible. Progress almost never arrives with noise. It doesn't burst through the door announcing that your efforts were worth it. It begins in silence, beneath the surface, behind the scenes, beyond your sight. And because it's quiet, it's easy to assume nothing is happening. It's easy to believe your effort isn't working, your patience isn't paying off, or your time isn't being rewarded, but progress behaves much like nature. The most important growth happens long before anyone can see it. Think of a seed. For days, sometimes weeks, it sits under the soil, giving no sign of life. Nothing moves, nothing changes. The surface looks exactly the same, but beneath that stillness, something powerful is taking place. Roots are forming. The roots are the foundation. They are the strength. They are the part that must grow first, or nothing above the ground will last. Your progress is no different. Before your life shows any visible results, something must grow within you. Your resilience, your understanding, your discipline, your emotional endurance. People love visible progress. The raise, the breakthrough, the praise, the transformation. But the roots? Those are harder to appreciate because they don't look like progress. Yet they decide everything that happens afterward. When you're working hard and not seeing change, You're in the root-building season of your life. It's quiet, it's slow, it's often frustrating, but it's necessary. Silence is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that something important is taking shape where you can't see it. Life is strengthening the parts of you that aren't ready to be revealed yet. Every skill you're sharpening, every discipline you're practicing, every challenge you're enduring, these things are working on you internally long before they reward you externally. Progress has a rhythm, and silence is the first step of that rhythm. It's the phase where the work feels heavier than the reward, where the effort seems disconnected from the outcome, where you must believe, before you can see patience, is the ability to keep working during that silent season. It's the courage to trust the process without needing constant reassurance. It's the steadiness to say, I may not see change today, but I know something is being built. There's a reason early progress hides. If success showed up too soon, it would collapse under the weight of your inexperience. If results arrived instantly, you'd never develop the strength to maintain them. Life lets progress stay hidden until you're ready for it, not a moment earlier. And when that day comes, when the roots are deep enough, strong enough, steady enough, progress breaks the surface, and it looks overnight. People will say you got lucky, or came out of nowhere, or took off suddenly. But you'll know the truth. Those so-called overnight results were years in the making. They were built in silence, in the quiet mornings, the unnoticed efforts, the long stretches where no one applauded and nothing seemed to move. That's the beauty of patience. It helps you stay long enough to see what silence was shaping. Progress rarely appears when you demand it. It appears when you've earned it, quietly, naturally, and right on time. So stay with the work, stay with the process, stay with yourself, because even when you can't see growth happening, growth can still be happening, and when it finally shows itself, you'll realize the silence wasn't empty, it was preparation. Why impatience destroys long-term success. Impatience has a way of convincing you that something is wrong, when in reality, something is simply early. It pushes you to rush what can only grow at its own pace, and it whispers that slow progress is no progress at all. That's how countless dreams are abandoned, not because they were impossible, but because the person pursuing them couldn't bear the quiet in between. Impatience makes you forget that every worthwhile result requires time to mature. It blinds you to the fact that growth has stages, and each stage serves a purpose. There is preparation, then effort, then development, then alignment, and only after all of that comes reward. A hurried mind doesn't honor those stages. It wants the reward without the preparation, the results without the foundation, the victory without the patience, and because life doesn't work on those terms, impatience leads to one thing: quitting too soon. Impatience destroys success because it interrupts the process at the moment the process is finally starting to work. It convinces you to walk away at the exact point where staying a little longer would have changed everything. It magnifies doubts, amplifies fears, and turns temporary delays into permanent conclusions. It also distorts your sense of progress. Instead of appreciating what's improving, impatience fixates on what isn't perfect yet. Instead of noticing the steps forward, it obsesses over the distance left. It makes you compare yourself to others and assume their timeline should be yours. A patient person asks, "How far have I come?" An impatient person asks, "Why am I not there yet?" Those two questions build entirely different futures. Impatience also weakens discipline. When you want results immediately, you stop seeing the value in small, repeated effort. You start chasing shortcuts, switching strategies, or jumping to the next shiny idea, not because the first one failed, but because it didn't reward you fast enough. And in doing so, you end up restarting, again and again, never staying long enough in any direction to build momentum. That's how impatience destroys long-term success, not by blocking the path, but by pulling you off it. Impatience also blinds you to the invisible support happening in the background. People forget that while they're improving themselves, life is arranging the circumstances that will meet them later. The right timing, the right opportunity, the right person, the right moment. All of it takes time to align. But when impatience takes over, you step out of alignment before the moment has arrived. Impatience is rarely about the timeline. It's about insecurity. It shows up when you don't trust the process, or when you secretly don't trust yourself. When you doubt your strength to continue, impatience becomes an escape disguised as urgency. But patience allows you to hold your ground without panic. It allows you to face the unknown without assuming the worst. It keeps your mind clear, your emotions steady, and your decisions rooted in purpose, not fear. Impatience asks life to move faster. Patience asks you to grow stronger. The person who hurries collapses under pressure. The person who waits matures under pressure. Impatience destroys success, not because success refuses to arrive, but because impatience refuses to stay. And that's the great irony. The life you want is often just a few more consistent steps away, but you must remain long enough to reach it. The mindset that helps you stay steady during delay. Staying steady during delay is one of the hardest things a person can learn, not because the work is difficult, but because the silence is. When you're moving but not seeing results, you start to question yourself. You start to wonder if you misunderstood your path, or if life somehow forgot you along the way. But there is a mindset, quiet, simple, and powerful, that keeps you grounded during those long stretches where nothing seems to move. The mindset of steady expectation. Steady expectation is different from hope. Hope whispers, "I wish this will work." Expectation says, "I trust that it's working, even if I can't see it yet." Expectation is the attitude of a farmer. He plants, waters, waits, not because he's naive, but because he understands the pace of growth. He doesn't dig up the soil every morning to check on the seed. He trusts the process because the process has never failed him. That's the mindset that keeps you steady. Faith in the unseen, respect for the timing, and commitment to your role in the process. Another part of this mindset is learning to separate delay from denial. Delay means preparation is happening. Delay means roots are growing. Delay means conditions aren't aligned yet. Denial is final. Delay is formative. People lose patience because they confuse the two. Your life is not saying no, it's saying, not yet, keep building. To stay steady, you also need a sense of inner calm, the kind that comes from knowing that rushing won't help and quitting won't solve anything. Calm doesn't mean passive. Calm means you're no longer fighting the nature of growth. It means you've stopped demanding quick results and started focusing on good effort. Steadiness also comes from perspective. Look back on anything you've achieved, truly achieved, and you'll notice it never arrived as quickly as you wished. There were delays, detours, slow seasons, and quiet chapters, but they didn't stop you. They shaped you. They made you ready. Once you understand this, really understand it, delay becomes less frightening. Another key part of the mindset. Stop measuring too soon. When you check for progress every hour, you never see any. You interrupt the flow of your own growth. Instead of constantly evaluating your progress, evaluate your consistency. If you're doing the right things daily, progress must be forming, even if it's invisible. Steadiness also requires self-respect. When you respect your own effort, you don't walk away from it lightly. You don't let temporary silence erase permanent goals. You don't abandon the path because the view hasn't changed yet. And finally, the mindset that keeps you steady is built on one quiet truth. You don't need immediate proof to continue doing the right thing. A person who requires instant confirmation will never last long enough to build anything meaningful. But a person willing to continue without applause, without visible progress, without the comfort of certainty, that person becomes unstoppable. When you live with steady expectation, when you understand delay, when you trust the process more than your impatience, you develop a strength that can't be shaken by slow seasons. And when the results begin to appear, as they always do, you'll realize the waiting didn't weaken you. It refined you. It clarified you. It prepared you. Steadiness isn't simply surviving delay. Steadiness is becoming stronger during it. Lessons on time, growth, and quiet perseverance. Time has its own personality. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, and it doesn't bargain. It simply moves, steady, silent, and always forward. And if you learn to work with time instead of fighting it, your entire relationship with success begins to change. Growth is rarely dramatic. Movies and stories show breakthroughs happening in moments. Real life doesn't. Real life builds slowly, through repetition, learning, adjusting, and enduring. You gain strength quietly, almost without noticing, until one day you look back and realize you're standing on ground that used to overwhelm you. Time also teaches you that progress is not always visible from the outside. Some of the most important growth you'll ever experience happens internally. It appears in your patience, your confidence, your understanding, long before it appears in your results. You become calmer. You stop panicking at small setbacks. You stop feeling threatened by slow days. That inner shift is growth, pure, powerful growth, and it matters more than numbers ever will. Another lesson from time: you cannot rush what needs rhythm. There are seasons for planting, seasons for tending, seasons for waiting, and seasons for harvesting. Trying to force them out of order only hurts you. A season of planting will always feel uncertain. A season of waiting will always feel quiet. A season of growth will always feel subtle. And a season of harvest will always arrive later than you expected, yet earlier than you deserved. Quiet perseverance is what carries you through those seasons. It's the discipline of showing up even when enthusiasm fades. It's the strength of continuing when it would be easier to postpone. It's the maturity of realizing that shortcuts may look tempting, but they never bring lasting results. Quiet perseverance is not loud. It doesn't draw attention. It doesn't produce immediate reward. But it builds something inside you that no quick win ever could: resilience. Resilience is the ability to endure without losing heart. It's what keeps you standing when the results haven't yet arrived, when the future feels uncertain, when you're tempted to shrink back into comfort. Resilience is the product of patience, and patience is the product of time. Another lesson time teaches is humility. No matter how talented or ambitious you are, you cannot outpace the natural process of growth. You can't force clarity, you can't demand maturity, and you can't harvest fruit from a tree that hasn't grown roots. Time humbles you gently and shows you that everything worthwhile has a natural order, and your job is simply to stay aligned with it. Time also reveals the real difference between moving fast and moving well. Many people rush through life but never actually arrive anywhere meaningful. Quiet perseverance, on the other hand, moves slowly, but it moves correctly. It takes the path that lasts instead of the path that impresses. And perhaps the most beautiful lesson time offers: what you're working toward is often preparing itself for you too. Opportunities need time to form. People who will help you need time to mature. Circumstances need time to align. You are not the only one growing. The path itself is growing with you. When you understand these lessons, patience stops feeling like waiting. It starts feeling like collaborating. You do your part, and time does its part. Together, the two of you build something solid, something meaningful, something lasting. Quiet perseverance is the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. It doesn't care about applause. It doesn't need immediate reward. It only needs the steady belief that what you are doing will matter, in time. How consistency builds results, even when you can't see progress. Consistency is one of life's quiet miracles. It works slowly, often silently, and almost always without immediate reward. Yet nothing shapes your future more reliably. While motivation comes and goes, consistency turns ordinary effort into extraordinary transformation. The difficult thing about consistency is that it rarely feels like it's working. You repeat the same effort, day after day, and the surface of your life looks unchanged. No applause, no sudden breakthrough, no dramatic sign of progress, just the same routine, done by the same person, for the same goal, and that can feel discouraging. Consistency doesn't work gradually. It works suddenly. It builds beneath the surface until the day it breaks through, and then the change looks instant to everyone else. Think of a stone cutter. He strikes the stone 100 times, and it doesn't crack. On the 101st strike, it splits clean in two. But it wasn't that final strike that did it. It was all the ones before it that weakened the stone, quietly, invisibly. Consistency works the same way. The results come last, not first. The early work strengthens you. The middle work stabilizes you. The later work reveals what was happening all along. Consistency builds a kind of inner foundation that impatience will never experience. It teaches you reliability, commitment, and resilience. It shows you that you can count on yourself, and that may be the greatest reward of all. Each time you follow through, even in a small way, you add another layer to your character. You strengthen the identity of someone who doesn't quit, someone who shows up, someone who honors their promises. Consistency also builds intelligence. When you repeat something long enough, you begin noticing patterns that were once invisible. You learn faster, adjust smarter, and make clearer decisions. This accumulated understanding is one of the hidden gifts that only consistency can deliver. But the most fascinating thing about consistency is this. It continues working even when you don't feel inspired. Results don't care about your mood. Growth doesn't disappear on days when you're tired or uncertain. If you show up, even imperfectly, the process keeps moving. And that's why consistency is more powerful than intensity. Intensity demands energy. Consistency demands commitment. Intensity burns bright and fades quickly. Consistency burns steady and lasts a lifetime. Every great achievement, every skill mastered, every career built, every dream realized was created through countless small steps, some taken with excitement, some taken with reluctance, some taken with doubt, but taken nonetheless. Consistency also protects you from discouragement. When you build the habit of showing up daily, you stop obsessing over how long the journey will take. Instead, you focus on the next step, just one, and that focus keeps you moving through the slow seasons. If you stay consistent long enough, what once felt difficult becomes natural. What once took effort becomes automatic. What once required discipline becomes part of who you are. The real power of consistency is not what it builds on the outside. It's what it builds on the inside. When you become someone who shows up regardless of feelings, regardless of speed, regardless of visible progress, you become unstoppable. Because even when the results are invisible, the growth is happening. Even when nothing seems to change, something is changing. You. Consistency turns patience into progress. It turns effort into ability. It turns dreams into destinations. And when the results finally appear, as they always do, they won't surprise you. They'll feel like the natural conclusion of all the days you stayed committed when no one else knew progress was unfolding. So when you look back on your life someday, you won't remember the rush. You won't remember the moments you demanded speed or the days you felt behind. You'll remember the seasons when you stayed, when everything seemed silent, when progress hid itself, when doubt tried to move in. Yet you continued anyway. Because that is where your strength was formed. Not in the celebrations, but in the stretches where no one clapped. Not in the breakthroughs, but in the quiet days between them. Patience is not simply waiting. It's growing while you wait. It's trusting the path when the steps feel slow. It's walking forward when the road is empty. It's believing that time is working with you, not against you, and life has a way of rewarding those who refuse to rush, those who let time shape them instead of resisting every delay, those who keep watering the tree long before there's fruit. One day the results appear, not as a surprise, but as a confirmation that your effort meant something, a confirmation that your progress was unfolding all along, a confirmation that patience was never a punishment. It was the quiet bridge leading you to the life you were building. So hold steady, trust the unseen work, stay faithful to the process that's shaping you, because everything you want, everything you've worked for, is still on its way, not late, not lost, just arriving at the pace that growth requires. And when it comes, you'll see why it needed time. You'll understand why patience was the very thing that made you ready. Success takes its time, but so does becoming the person strong enough to hold it.